Not going to sugarcoat it for anybody. Vibes are at an all-time low with the podcast. We are hurting in more ways than one. We've got a team that is, for lack of a better word, ass. We've got equipment that's not working.
Let's just put, because this was the least, like, normally we know we're going away for some time, and
we can warn people.
So what happened was, when we last recorded, our last episode came out February 8th. This is March 1st. Oof. And I promise it wasn't intended to be this long. So what happened was, Justin, as he told you in the last episode.
Was...
Yeah, for real though. What happened was, Justin was going to Disney, which we talked about on the podcast.
I gave a pure explanation of my flu game. I overcame the most immense obstacle of my life and was so excited to share it with everybody.
Well, I mean, maybe we should just I guess I should start in reverse chronological order almost. So this is only literally the second time it's happened in the past 12 years, but we had a podcast that fully recorded. The whole episode recorded. We have a video of it. I may even post the video if there's some insane lip reader out there who wants to go see it. We talked Wemby. We talked All-Star. We talked Brandon Ingram's new contract. It was really good. That was the worst part.
We responded to an amazing review of the Raptors' future that we got on YouTube.
Yeah, shout out to, I forget, B. Lee or what the comment it was. We'll pull that up in a sec. But it was I like most of the episodes we record. It was a good podcast, and we had recorded last week.
It's B. Lee 1995. Dude is either works for the Raptors or is just.
It might be a Messiah Ujiri's burger, straight up. It was really detailed.
Yeah,
it was really, and we appreciate you listening as well. But so the short version is, we were supposed to have an episode that came out last week. Then we get really busy during, Justin and I. Let's just do a little context to where we are right now. I am in my last semester of law school, ahead of the bar, finishing things up. So I am quite busy. Justin has an extremely young child and also got promoted at work. So he is also quite busy during the week. So normally we have our time to lock in, and that's not an excuse for that. Right. We still we love doing this podcast. I love the show. It's an outlet for both of us. And we have, for the most part, we lock in every Saturday morning, and that's when we record, including last Saturday. I'll fully take the blame for the week before that, because I was supposed to record with Sam Albuquerque, our bud, 2 Thursdays ago. And that would have, the week you were in Disney, that would have covered the episode. And then you and I would have recorded last week, and we'd have just been normal and on track.
And no one would have known any different.
I got Sixers tickets last minute, and shout out to my guy, Taylor. Went to watch the Sixers and Celtics, and so we'll get into that later, because that was Embiid's last game of the season, after all is said and done.
Last game of his 76ers career.
Well, we'll talk a little bit later there. Or I guess it wasn't the last one. I guess he played in the Brooklyn game on that Saturday. But
that game was also, we got absolutely walloped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got walloped. So I enjoyed the company that I was with, and that was the fun I had with it. I ate some food. I ate some good food. We were vibing. But no, it's terrible. And we'll get into the Sixers a little bit later in the podcast. But it's just been a comedy of error. I'm not gonna lie though. Because the first time we ever had an episode crash, it was 40 minutes into the recording. But it's just because I forget what we were recording it on. But it's just the software fully crashed and shut down.
Yeah.
And so that stinks. But,
speaking of, you just made me think of this. So speaking of, I had that happen. For anybody that you referenced the new position, right? I do a lot of promotions for the radio station now. We had a client that came and paid a good chunk of money to do a forum in our room, and I was running the PowerPoint for them. And when I tell you, the entire computer froze.
Yeah.
On slide 16, I'm going to get 16 tattooed on my neck because of how much this gave me anxiety. It crashed to the point I had to reset the computer. It was a live audience.
Yeah.
So they had to take questions for 10 minutes as I reset this computer. All that to say, I have to do one again tonight.
Oh, so you're paranoid.
Dude, I have 6 computers coming with me. 6 of them, 6 laptops with the PowerPoint on it. If it breaks, HDMI is getting ripped out and plugged back into the other one. We are not messing around. But
yeah,
Sorry, just went like literally. I
No.
gotta share my trauma, I guess.
That was like when it crashed, like I said, with the tech, it was what it was. Last week was brutal, not just because the episode was great, but because, like I said, the video fully recorded. We have
Everything
the
was
whole
there.
video. It's
Yeah.
all there.
No
and
audio.
You can even hear the intro audio. Like everything is there except the actual audio. And like I said, maybe there's some crazy lip reader out there. Like I'll post it. It was oh God, it was just so disappointing.
So you should post it and just say this has no like the title should be this has no audio, and then like maybe we just become an internet meme because it's like hilarious.
God, and like full disclosure, we're still not recording on the same software. Like it glitched again this week, so like we have a backup. Thankfully,
we did this intro.
We learned our lesson.
we did like 2 minutes of this episode on the platform. I'll call him out, Melon. Get your stuff together, man. We pay for that, you know. So either way, we might be moving off of that, so the podcast might look a little bit different if they.
You're hitting them with threat right away. Okay.
Listen, if they don't. Look, we're on email number 2 now, and they haven't responded. Like, what kind of leniency do we have here? I don't know. I understand we're not no video gamer that makes, whatever. We're not Ninja making a ton of money streaming off their platform, but, like, we still use them weekly, and we pay them. So, like, yo, help us out. Like,
a whole episode crash. It was brutal, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was, and it's funny because we did talk about mental health a little bit last week and the importance of working out. Like this is why I'm so frustrated. It was a good episode. Like it was genuinely one of I feel like the better episodes we put out this season. It doesn't exist.
It was a great follow up to my Disney rant, like overcoming that adversity and being at Disney. Just to really spark notes the whole thing is I got hit with the flu. I pretty much recovered like 2 hours before I had to go to Disney with my family. And we were just popping Advil to get through that thing. Yeah. So and we did it. And seeing my daughter meet 42 different versions of Minnie Mouse, though it was annoying waiting 30 minutes in line to see the exact same character in different locations around the park, she loved every second of it, and that made it worth it. So,
your wife posted a really nice recap video. It was cool. You say you look like you were struggling. I thought you were pulling it off. So I'm glad you guys had a good time.
We do have to do that. Okay, that's my little nugget I want to bring out, and it's like a shameless plug. If you go to my Instagram page and you watch this video, there's a point where it's a great video. It's mostly my kid just running around Disney, but there's a point where I am pushing the stroller. My back is to the camera. And we got a whole back of sweat, like massive sweat mark. And I say that because it was probably 60 degrees out. It was not hot. Yeah. That sweat mark is because I was breaking a fever easily. So it's kind of hilarious. I definitely got called out by my buddies. They took a screenshot of it, and they're like, "Bro, are you that out of shape that walking around Disney got you?"
It's like, fam, it's like, whoa, don't do me like that. Like,
I mean, listen, I haven't been to the gym in a minute, and again, we talked about that too. But like, no, that's not the problem.
I don't even want to talk about it, dude. I feel like I had ankle tendonitis flare up this week. I haven't ran in a week. Like it's feeling better. I'm gonna be all right, but like, dude, I'm frustrated, man.
You wanna talk about a cool moment? This actually it kind of comes full circle. Anybody that I've probably referenced him in the past. My buddy JB, he was in my wedding. I think I've talked to you about him, dude. Definitely struggled with drinking. All of his 20s pretty much just spent it drunk. And I think he'd be okay with me saying that. Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. But was a great football player in high school. Like very fit. I think he played linebacker. But then, graduated, didn't go to college, kind of had a job he didn't like, was just drinking all the time.
Yeah.
And probably got close. He's shorter than me. He's probably 5'10", maybe. But got close to like maybe 275 weight. Like he very much gained a lot of weight because he was drinking like 30 IPAs. Like he was going crazy.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And so him and my other buddy, the one that passed away, he was my roommate through all of college. He also was dealing with some alcohol stuff. They had a deal that they were going to run a marathon together. They were going to try to turn their lives around. Well, my buddy in college, spoiler, he passed away. So my buddy JB was like, I still got to make this promise to him. So he spent the last 2 years like getting right. He was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drinking almost a 30-pack of beer a day. And now he just last week ran the marathon in Wilmington, North Carolina, for anybody that wants to know. And in his age group, he came in 30th out of 270.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Like, truly,
ran the marathon. Yeah.
Big credit to JB. And I mean, look, man, I mean, it's awesome first that he just recovered in general. And shout out to anybody going through it. Like, recovery is definitely possible.
Yes.
Like, you're not alone. There's help out there. I'm glad he was able to turn out, because you're right. Like, I mean, 30 beers a day and 2 packs of cigarettes, like, you're killing yourself.
You're on a fast track to not good stuff. Yeah.
And you know, shout out to him for having the clarity to realize that. And yeah, that's super cool that he, you know, fulfilled that goal.
100%. You know, he's obviously a little upset that my buddy couldn't do it with him, but that gives you that extra motivation is kind of what I was saying. I was like, you know, he was with you in that run. Like, the reason I brought it up is he was dealing with some tendonitis and was worried about not being able to do the marathon. And so he wasn't able to run like 2 weeks before the race because of that. And so he was kind of concerned about it. I'm like, bro, you came in like 32nd out of 200 and some people in your age group. Like, that's crazy for your first marathon. So he signed up for another one. I guess there's one in Pennsylvania that he's doing, that like is in the mountains though. Like it literally says this is not going to be your PR. Like, it's going to be, it's going to, right. Like, it's going to kill you. And of course, now he's like, what if you do it with me? And I was like, ooh, hey, hold up.
Like, hang on, I'm happy for you. I'm gonna let
listen,
you finish,
bro.
but
My running ended in 2018 when I did the Gate River run with Kevin Rafuse. I absolutely ruined my knee. I don't know what I did. I haven't been able to get it fixed since. I don't know what's wrong with it. Part of me wants to explore it a little bit, so I might if anybody's got tips. But
go to an ortho. What do you mean explore it a little bit? Go to an ortho.
That's what I don't. But I don't want it to be a torn meniscus, and I'm like pretty sure it is.
Buddy, then get it fixed. Like, what are you doing? What do you mean?
I really do want to run again, but like, you know,
it's not even about the running. It's just about your general health. I don't really care about the running.
No, I want to run. Yes, I want to run again. I want to at least be able to, like, back in the day, I could get up and just do a 5K, right? Like 5 miles, whatever.
3.1.
Yeah. 3.1. I could do that. I actually can't now. And it's not from a physically, well, I guess it is from a physically unable to, because my knee will not let me. Like, my knee will lock up and it will feel like it's on fire. And so, yeah, I do need to get it checked out. I think I'm in that weird space where, like, I don't want to hear the news that it's like you got to get surgery. I don't want to hear that news. Or the opposite, where they're like, oh, you got nothing wrong. It's like, oh, I'm just that much of a wimp. I can't get past this pain to, like, get it through. Either side will ruin me.
It's probably the former. I think you can do it, and you can't really hurt yourself. You can't beat yourself up over the former.
Sure. But if it's the other one, like, vibes are low right now. If the doctor's like, yeah, nothing's wrong, you're just you know what, for trying to keep this a PG podcast, like, that will ruin me. That will put me in the darkest place possible.
I hear you. I'm a little more optimistic. I don't think it's that, and I'm optimistic the vibes are going to get better as the podcast goes along. We just got to vent a little bit early on, because it's like, it's more because, like, we're both as frustrated as you guys are that this podcast hasn't been out in 3 weeks. Like, I don't love being off that long, and, like, we've been consistent this season, and it's just, you know, unfortunately, you know, like I said, this podcast, I don't want it to come off that this podcast isn't a priority for us, because it is. It's just that we are very busy at points too. So
life gets in the way.
Thank you for the patience. We appreciate you guys. Like we said, we are back on track and recording this episode successfully, thankfully.
Well, listen, hey, we haven't. Hold on.
If this episode doesn't record, then I'm telling you, I'm on an indefinite hiatus. I'm going to get
really
I'm going to do. I'm going to call Chase and I'm going to call Sam and I'm going to say, hey, you guys need to host the pod for a month. Like, hold it down for us.
I need a break. I can't do it. Yeah,
I can't. Like, have a little crossover. That'd be crazy. But
so let's rehash a little bit now that we're almost 20 minutes in. Let's rehash what we did talk about, which was the Wemby news, which is scary stuff, and the All-Star break. So I do you want to jump into Wemby first or All-Star?
Wemby, I think we can talk Wemby and Pop quick, just because it's both, like, it's just sad news on both fronts. Like, obviously with Pop, you know, with his age and, like, him coming off a stroke, like, there was always going to be that. And he did go to meet with the team the other day, so that's great. But it's like, you know, Greg Popovich, you kind of made the joke with Wemby that it's like he's going to coach till he dies, but, like, you didn't want that to be actually true.
Yeah.
you want to kind of see him leave the team on his own terms. And it's unfortunate now, like with a legend that he is, that he's not essentially leaving the team on his own terms. Like obviously he was forced out. That's just a brutal situation. We hope Coach Pop just recovers first, period, and is good to, keeps that going. I'd love to see him back on the NBA floor for a little bit, but like that's kind of understandable if it's not. With Wemby, it's just,
scary.
and this is again a longer version of the conversation we had last week is, there are two types. We've had two major players since doing this podcast that have had blood clots, right? And because anytime you hear it, like you instantly go, that is terrifying. Like
You
blood clots that's shutting him down for the rest of the year. And I'm glad the Spurs are optimistic that he's going to be back for the beginning of next year. But again, like this is a guy that we build as one of the faces of this league in the future. And the two cases that, going back to that is it's Chris Bosh, who is the bad case or the worst case scenario.
It ended his career. Yeah,
right.
He was done.
Like he still had multiple productive years probably left in his 30s, and we just never got to see them because it ended his career. The other one is somebody we talked about a few years ago, and somebody we're going to bring back up in Ballin and Fallin is Brandon Ingram. And Brandon Ingram had it with the Pelicans, missed a bunch of time. That turned out to be a one-time incident. He's he's missed time with other injuries, but he's obviously been able to play NBA basketball, hasn't been limited because of that blood clot.
And some would argue came back better than ever. Like he was definitely putting up good stats with the Pelicans post, dealing with the blood clots.
Yeah, and I mean, this basically all came about. Like they said, they had noted like that Wemby felt lethargic essentially going into the All-Star break. Like he wanted to play the All-Star game, and he, I guess he'd started to feel like a little better, but he didn't feel great after the All-Star game, and so they went to go get tested. And obviously that's just the most important thing too, is they got tested here. And we're able to just get ahead of this. Like we said, this is a scarier situation. It's a little different than your traditional NBA injury in that it's not, you don't worry about his athleticism being affected here. You just need him to be right. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I hear your subtle undertones of yelling at me for not getting my knee checked in that response to the.
I wouldn't quite go that far. It's a little different. I mean, obviously, like if they catch something there, I mean, that's the best case scenario.
And I don't think but obviously with the Wemby stuff, like you said, the I guess the bright spot is he's super young. Obviously gonna have to take the time to make sure he's okay, but it's better than an older NBA player that's got less years on his career. It does suck that this year, like Wemby won't be able to win any of the awards, essentially, which there was, real legit arguments for Defensive Player of the Year and some others. So that stinks a little bit, but the kind of underlying tone, the bright spot is like, dude's so young. Like there will be multiple years afterwards, hopefully, that he can get some of that hardware.
I mean, he's already, for my money, the best defensive player in the league. And again, at 21 years old, I think the other unfortunate part, besides, the injury itself, is just the fact that, the Spurs were kind of in a position to, really push for that play-in spot to kind of battle, Sacramento's right there as well. But we were fighting off Phoenix, and you really were trying to, make that run, especially after going out and getting De'Aaron Fox, right? Like this was a combo we were really excited to see. It's already trended the wrong direction. Like they've lost 4 in a row. You're sitting there 24 wins, but like you're 6.5 back from the Kings right now. And it feels like you're right. It's like you almost need to like go further into the lottery now at this point, because you're just not going to make that push.
And I think that's okay. Again, one of the things we talked about last week, just to rehash it since the audio didn't work, is like the real bummer here, obviously losing Wemby, is you don't get to see a lot of Fox and Wemby to really know what else you need to push the Spurs to that next level.
Right.
So as long as Wemby's back next year, you need to use that next year a little bit to do that. Now, the Spurs, I don't want to say the word tank, but the Spurs end up towards the bottom of the league. You can go get another good player, which is obviously what I think they'll do. But the bummer with that is like, you still don't fully know what that player is. Like you can't go wrong just getting a good player, but like, maybe with Wemby and Fox, we need like another slasher, or we need a 3-and-D guy. Like you're just not going to know. And next year's where you can kind of find that out a little bit. So it delays the rebuild. And something we pointed out last year, like the Spurs seem okay with a slow rebuild, like do it right, get it right. So I don't think it's a big deal. I know fans probably are like, another year, but worst case scenario, you go get a great player and you see if it fits, and we reassess next year.
Well, and you got to trust her. I mean, Wemby obviously is an easy draft pick. You still should get credit for not overthinking it, galaxy braining it. But even last year with Castle's probably going to come out here and win Rookie of the Year. So like, you got to trust their front office to get it right. Right. It's just I'm with you in the sense that it's like you're right. You don't get to evaluate positionally if what's Wemby with Fox, like what is what? Maybe do you go with another forward? Do you need a different type of guard? But I still trust their front office to get that right. I'm not necessarily worried about that. Switching to All-Star a little bit. So Team Shaq was the winner of the actual game itself. The other highlights really from that weekend: Tyler Hero won the 3-point shootout. Mac McClung won his third dunk contest. But I think, and again, 2 weeks out, but the NBA, and it's interesting because going into Super Bowl week and the trade deadline is one of our big talks was that, hey, the NBA really stole the NFL's thunder, which is something that just never happens. Like the NFL, as we've talked about multiple times, is the number one sport in America, especially going into the Super Bowl. Like we talked about the game, and you better believe I'm going to talk about the game at some point. Fly Eagles fly. We did it. Super Bowl champs. And that's a very needed distraction from the Sixers season right now. But again, that's later on in the episode. But it went up. It was funny because it feels like the NBA had the exact opposite that happened to them with the NHL's just overwhelming success of the Four Nations tournament. For those who aren't hockey fans, you basically got an all-star team from Sweden, from Finland, from the US and Canada. Ended up being an incredible final, ton of stakes out there right away. Canada ended up winning the tournament 3-2 in overtime. But it's the most watched hockey game in ages. And I mean, it really was a lot of positive spotlight on the NHL. And I think the big takeaway there, and what unfortunately the NBA gets, because the narrative around the All-Star game is like, these NHL guys were going out there and they were playing. Like, it did not feel like an exhibition game. Like,
there was a lot of politics involved with why it happened, but there was immediate fighting. Like, and I know you can't fight in the NBA like that, but like, there was immediate fireworks, like right off the rip, which got people really into it.
Yeah, they were trying. They put active amounts of effort in, and where I think you look at the All-Star game, and that's been the concern, is the effort. Now, the format was all right. You had the rising stars, you had Team Candace, you had Team Chuck and Team Shaq. We talked about their rosters a little bit. Steph Curry was the All-Star game MVP. Low-key, Jayson Tatum probably got hosed for that award, but I think Steph got a little bit of like a legacy award there, without a doubt. But it feels like the first two rounds were a little bit better, but then they shot themselves in the foot and they put those long breaks in between it. So it just feels like it killed all the momentum. And by the time we got around to the final, it just was like all the energy was taken out of it. It didn't feel like they were playing that hard. It kind of fell back to that like exhibition level that we had seen last year, where it's just like it's a joke. And I think it's tough because the NBA, really kind of put the word out to say, hey, we need you guys to bring it this weekend. Like, I don't need you to go game 7 of the finals out here, but can we give a little bit here? Like, can we have a little bit of competition? And it just wasn't really that again. And I think, not to totally steal the Four Nations thunder, but like, I do think I'm with the pivot that I think it needs to become US versus the world.
That'd be fun. But do you think it would, and I guess my point is, take away the politics of everything that really led into or helped bump up the Four Nations stuff. Because, like, think about it. Like, it was literally Canada that was getting talked about in politics.
For sure.
And then it was U.S. Canada. Like,
it was very relevant.
It was, I want to say the word timely, but that feels wrong to say as well. But like,
I mean, it was. Yeah. Look, the relationship between the U.S. and Canada right now, largely because of the U.S.'s actions, it's at an all-time low right now. Like, lower than the vibes are. Yeah,
the vibes are low, the relationship's low. But like, if the Four Nations thing on hockey was to happen every year, would it be lesser of excitement? Or if it became an every 4-year thing, kind of like the Olympics a little bit, like you let there be some space, you let people be like, man, I can't wait for that to come back. which I know can't happen for an all-star game. If you're trying to do that every single year, it makes it tough. But I think there could be a level of, like, if it happens too much, the vibes around it, the excitement around it may be less.
I don't fully disagree with that. You're right. I do think you worry about, and I don't know, at least with the NHL, you're right. If the political tension and atmosphere will be able to be recreated like
if
that.
It was those four every NHL All-Star week, break, whatever you want to call it, like, I don't know. I feel like maybe after year 2 or 3, it's like, okay, well, we know what to expect now.
I think with USA v World, it's a little different because I think in the NHL context, you may not be wrong there, and maybe it's like an every other year thing. I don't think it needs to be in every 4 years because of the Olympics. Like, I think that'll kind of take some of that as well. Sure. But I definitely think that, with US, because we've seen it in the Olympics. Like, that's, I guess, why I'm encouraged by the level of competition there, is that it's like, hey, they do go out and try. And the USA-France final, they were definitely trying. Like, I don't know if you've watched Court of Gold yet, the new Netflix doc that dropped about the Team USA and everybody else. It's a good watch, definitely worth it. They're trying. Like, there is no doubt about it that they are trying, and there's a little bit of pride there. I think too, like, regardless of what the motivation is, because like maybe part of the motivation for Team USA is just, hey, let's not go get embarrassed here right now.
Sure.
Like, this is our sport. Like, we've dominated this for so long. You're right. You don't want to be the team that ends up losing.
And it's worth mentioning, again, we mentioned this last time, but it's worth mentioning, yes, it's the US's sport. But there's an argument to be made in the top 3 players in the league right now are not on Team USA.
No, I agree. I mean, I think my 2 best players in the league right now are Jokic and Giannis. Obviously, both of them not American. Right.
So that would be Team not USA at this point. That's the first 2 there.
Yeah, and so at that point, it depends, where do you put Luka? Where do you put like a Jayson Tatum type deal? Sure. Like, how do you rate those guys? But I mean, if you're looking at a hypothetical Team USA right now, or Team World right now, I should say, it's not a team of slide. Like, you mentioned Giannis and Jokic, but it's like, right, you got Luka right there. You've got Luka. SGA, you've got Şengün, you've got I'm trying to, why do I feel like I'm missing somebody? I mean, I can, rattle off a bunch of these other guys like Vucevic and stuff like that. The Gasol brothers obviously aren't playing anymore. They'd have been there too, but like, right, like, this is not a team of, let's say Jamal Murray. I'll put Jamal Murray in there too. He's champion. He deserves a little bit of credit there. The point is, though, is that Team World could very well beat Team USA. Like, we just saw France give the US their run for their money. I have always said that if Yugoslavia was still a country, they could probably give the USA run every single year.
Yeah.
You can't tell me a best group of international players right now wouldn't give Team USA a run. And so because of that, just like, even if it's hey, we just don't want to lose because we're the US pride, because the world will bring it. The international players want to knock the US off and get it at some point. So
it's also worth mentioning, just through looking at the top players in the NBA for points total this year, SGA has like significantly more than everybody. Yeah. Like, SGA is number 1 by almost 300 points, which is wild. And like, Anthony Edwards is number 2. They've both played 58 games. SGA has 1,875 and Ant has 1,584. Like, that is wild. Yeah. That he has that much more.
I'm looking at this world team right now. It is wild, and it's probably why he's going to win MVP. Yeah. It's got to be him or Jokic. If you're doing 12 right now, it's probably Giannis, Luka, and Jokic. And then it's like, I think Franz Wagner makes it. I think Lauri Markkanen makes it. SGA makes it. Siakam, Wemby, Şengün, Jamal Murray. But then at that point, you have plenty of other options. Like, you got Zubats, you got Vucevic, you got Jonas Valanciunas. Like, a lot of
Wemby would definitely be on it if healthy.
Yeah, Wemby's definitely on it if he's healthy. Rudy Gobert is right there. Does Gobert make it? Yeah, Sabonis. Like, there are plenty of guys. Like, this is a quality roster. This is not just like a few top-heavy guys. Like, they could give the U.S. some run. And so I think, that to me is what you got to do there. Like, I feel like that's the only way to make this salvageable at some point. Or you're reaching the point where you just cancel All-Star Weekend. And that would be really disappointing, and given the event that it was at one point.
And the only other thing I was thinking, again, I think it would divide it up up too much, but maybe you make a few different world teams, like it's USA versus, top half world, bottom half world, like, however you could split it up to kind of get a few teams in there maybe. But again, I think with your point, it needs to be all of that.
Yeah, I think that's really all you can do at this point. Shout out to Mac McClung winning the dunk contest. He cooked again this year. We already know what it is. There's not a lot of star power in it. 3-point shootout. It didn't have Steph. That's my biggest beef. It did have some legit guys. Obviously, Hero's been having a great season. Dame is Dame. But yeah, still, I think without Steph, I'm always going to want a little more. Either way, like I said, hopefully they can turn it around. I don't I hate being negative about All-Star Weekend like this, but it just kind of is what it is at this point. At some point, somebody's got to take a little bit of pride with this, and I just hope it comes a little bit sooner than later.
Well, and it kind of leans into a little bit of what LeBron's been tweeting about. I know we probably talk about it during Ballin and Fallin, but he's been kind of on one, being there's just a lot of negativity around the NBA, a lot on social media. And not enough positive vibes, I guess, is kind of his point. But either way, we can talk about that more during Ballin and Fallin, because I have another comment about him that I want to bring up. So
yeah, 100%. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Cousart.
I have the tweet. Hold on. Fun fact: I hate losing.
Put him in the All-Star game. Maybe we'll take a little bit there.
I think he was there.
Is this well, I guess Giannis didn't play in the All-Star game.
They're on an LA team, and it's not LeBron.
Oh, is it Harden?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, he said he used the hashtag Uno, and I was really hoping when I clicked on it, it would be him in playing an Uno game, but it wasn't. It was just his jersey with the one. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's been doing that for a while. He's dropping Uno with the Sixers.
I was kind of hoping, though. I thought it was going to be an Uno game. I was excited for him to be playing Uno.
Yeah. You ever played Uno No Mercy by chance?
No, but that sounds amazing.
Wild, dude. It's wild. Yeah. There's a way to lose if you have too many cards. There's other way. It's good time. Listen, a pure game of Uno, we'll never ever argue with that. But
I just bought this new game for our promo team. It's called Tetris Tumble.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially, think about it's pretty big. It's almost giant Jenga in a way. But
right.
It's a platform, and then the thing that sits on it is almost like a U, so it's super off balance, right? It's like a seesaw.
Right.
And then there's these massive different Tetris pieces, and you have to go back and forth putting them on this U and building up the Tetris as you go. And obviously, if you accidentally put it on one side too much, it'll tip and it all falls over. Dude, we had so much fun playing that thing. It's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, little things, man, little things.
Costco, $80 if anybody wants it.
There you go. Not too bad at all. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Player FM, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
And shout out again to B. Lee 1995, who gave us a great response to our Raptors talk the first time about what they were doing in their trade for Brandon Ingram. Had an amazing rebuttal 2 weeks ago or so. So we're sorry you didn't hear our initial response because the episode didn't record, but we did appreciate your comment, and obviously we'll read all the comments that happened there and anywhere else. And that is where you can subscribe on YouTube. Just find Driving Dish NBA. You'll get notifications when new episodes are coming out.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
So I'm officially in the market for a new team. I'm over it. The news coming out, I mean, really last night, as of recording this podcast, Joel Embiid sidelined for the remainder of the season due to ongoing issues in his left knee. The team announced that decision again last night. He had a bunch of tests on his knee earlier this week, trying to figure out what's going on, and now they're going to shut it down to determine a treatment plan, which means I need a new NBA team because I'm done with this. I
mean, I've kind of basically just been I said I'm back to Team LeBron. I don't really know if I have another team, but it's just because look, I don't root for the Lakers kind of gross. I don't have that I mean, look, the Sixers are an Eastern Conference team. Yeah, they beat us in the finals in 2001, but like I don't really have that like Lakers dislike that a lot of other NBA fans do. And look, I understand it, but it's like if I gotta hate one of the Celtics or the Lakers, it's gonna be the Celtics every single time.
Well, and so this kind of opens up a fun discussion, right? We can kind of do like a little back half of the season. I almost want to approach it as like, what team, if you're going Team LeBron, I'll avoid the Lakers then. But what team can I start rooting for right now, the back half of this season, that's going to give me a good playoffs run, potentially win it all, but won't be the most egregious bandwagoning of bandwagons that could happen?
Yeah, it's probably got to be somebody in the West, or it's got to be Cleveland, honestly, like, which is weird to say because Cleveland is the number one team in the East right now.
Right.
Coming off a huge win last night against Boston in Boston. But with them, I think because, again, of what we talked about, because they haven't had quite as much success in the playoffs yet, I think that, maybe they're not on that national scale as much. Like, you're not rooting for Boston.
But worth mentioning, right? With that win, they are the number one team in the NBA in the win column. Thunder are 48, Cavs are 49.
They're checking boxes for sure. Yep. And I mean, I've been saying that for a while. I also feel differently about Cleveland post DeAndre Hunter trade. Like, I still think that's going to be one of the more underrated moves in the NBA. Like, that's exactly the kind of guy they needed.
That's what they got, so they could kind of compete with the Celtics, because the Celtics, the first few meetings, shut them down at 3. So they went and got a 3-point shooter, and look who won. Though, worth mentioning in that game, they started way behind, which, again, I'll talk about in Ballin and Fallin. But yeah, I mean, it's a good look, especially with the Celtics right on their tail.
Celtics have turned it up in the second half too. Like, the Celtics are definitely playing. It feels like the Celtics at times have a different gear that they can switch into, but you're starting to think that Cleveland has it too, honestly.
Well, the fact that they're 7.5 behind Cavs. The second place is 7.5 games behind first. Like, that's wild when you think about it. Like, the Cavs are about to be at 50 wins. But after this weekend, like, who do they play next? They're probably going to be at 50 wins. Schedule. Hold on, sorry, I'm pulling it up. They play the Trailblazers. So they're probably going to be at 50 wins by the end of the weekend.
Blazers sneaky playing better recently. But
Sure, yeah, but still, there are 27 and 33.
I mean, everybody else in the East, like, I mean, like, you could go. I mean, Knicks are a little more like popular post last season.
But can I go Knicks as a Sixers fan? I don't think I can go Knicks.
So here's my thing. Like, the Sixers and the Knicks are rivals, and so I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I have also said multiple times that if the Knicks ever win the title, I am for sure going straight up to New York City, and I'm partying with those lunatics because they haven't won in so long.
I could try to pull the Villanova card a little bit, be like the Nova Knicks. They're all Eagles fans. They're all Philly guys.
Brunson's an Eagles fan. They all bully Josh Hart for being a Commanders fan.
Who showed up to the? Was it Cat that showed up to the game in the Phillies gear? Someone showed up to the game. Yeah. Was it Cat?
Documented Eagles fan.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. I guess, like, in a weird way, I could justify Knicks. I also feel the same about Bucks.
It's not as gross as Boston.
But I also feel weirdly about if I were to try to switch to Bucks. Like, I just feel like most of the East I can't out of the Sixers fandom.
Unless you want to, like, go roll with, like, Indy or Detroit or something like that. Like, by all means. But like you said,
would be fun. Yeah, you get at least a young team, a few years where you're going to be competing.
It's all house money, too, with the Pistons this year. Like, the Pistons are clearly having a great season. I think they're overachieving beyond what everyone thought.
And I want nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Hawks, Bulls, Nets, Raptors, Hornets, Wizards. Like, no way.
Right. None of them are making. Well, yeah, you got to talk about playoff runs. Like, I think everybody who's in now is kind of locked in. It's just a matter of where they go. But you're right. I mean, 7 through 10 is under 500 right now. Chicago is 12 games under 500 right now. I mean, out west, the bandwagon pick is OKC. I would have said Denver is a bandwagon pick, but like Denver's been down this year and is now kind of back up. So I almost like respect that a little bit.
I feel like being there now, though, would be bandwagon. Like, if it was the beginning of the year, it would be fine. I feel like the one that people really aren't talking about as much because they're only 5-5 in their last 10 would be the Grizz. Like, going Grizz, they're third in the West. They're 38 and 21. They're still 10 back from first place. They're probably not going to get there, obviously. but 5-5, like Ja Morant's back, everyone's playing good. Like they might be the sneaky pick where it wouldn't feel, even though they're third in the West, they wouldn't feel too bandwagony to jump on.
No, for sure. They're not. People haven't talked about the Grizzlies on the national perspective even close to what they have in the past few years.
There's an article you should look up where with the Joel Embiid news, it's essentially saying the 76ers should look at the Grizzlies past few years, other than obviously the Ja Morant gun stuff, as like a building block for the future. So it's an interesting comparison that they kind of point out. So
yeah, I'll have to check that out. I mean, Houston's another like great non-bandwagony pick. The jury's been out, or not the jury's been out for them, but they've been a good young surprise for a while. The Clippers too, same deal. It's more of just like, what do you realistically like think their ceiling is? And so if you want to go on a longer playoff run, it's probably should be like Denver or Memphis at this point.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we're staying away from the Lakers because you got the Lakers because of LeBron. They are sneaky right now. I mean, they're
not sneaky. They employ Luka Doncic.
But that's what I mean. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 5-game win streak. People are posting about Luka's stat. Like Luka's he's turning down cake now. Like it's a whole thing.
Oh, Luka's pissed. That's the thing. It's like, look, they maybe created a demon there. And I mean, they came back and they played, or they had their first game against Dallas the other night. And like Luka talked about how awkward it was and it's weird and how he just doesn't like it, which should only infuriate Mavericks fans even more. The other thing with the Lakers too that we kind of didn't talk about is it's like, how about the Mark Williams trade getting voided? Him going back to Charlotte now, stuff, and I mean, you have a little bit of awkwardness too, where it's like with Dalton Connect, a guy who I still think is a good young prospect. Like I like when the Lakers drafted Connect. He was a good target there. It's kind of definitely a little weird right now. They're still missing that center necessarily. Mark Williams would have definitely helped there. I mean, post AD, they've taken a step back defensively, but again, it's like you got Luka. Like that combination is only going to get better with him and LeBron. Yeah. So, but I mean, definitely though, from a bandwagoning perspective, anytime you bandwagon the Lakers, I think most people are going to naturally look like a little like, all right, fam, like. Really, you're going to bandwagon? It's like picking the Yankees.
Yeah, and Dalton's, at least the last few games, playing around 15, 20-ish minutes. So, but honestly, if I'm him, I'm like, well, at least I'm back on a potential playoff run team. Like,
I hear you. It's still awkward, though. It's like, you guys are getting rid of me. My first half season, you're going to trade me already? And you're going to and on top of it, you're going to send me to Charlotte. Like, no, not Charlotte City. Charlotte, the city's great. Charlotte, the franchise has not been so great.
That's a you got to take him to dinner and apologize probably kind of situation.
Big time. It's so awkward when you come back in the building. Like that's the craziest part. And I mean, same with Mark. It's like Mark, I feel like it's a little less awkward for because it's like, I don't know what happened here. Like,
yep. So what do you think about, in the West, that kind of middle pack, Rockets, Clippers, Warriors, even Mavs a little bit, Timberwolves, who are surprisingly down.
Warriors are sneaky now with Jimmy. That's the thing. Jimmy's going to the Bay and been hooping. So
7-3 in their last 10, 5 wins in a row.
We got to watch them. Clippers, it's tough just because I think like.
But Harden hates losing.
Oh no, I hear you. And I mean, look, I don't want to slander James Harden this year. Like James Harden's gone to the Clippers and he's played really good basketball. Like he's playing within his role. He's been helpful to Kawhi. Now that Kawhi is back. I don't know. It just feels like the Clippers have a ceiling. Houston, I feel pretty good about. I mean, their depth is great. It's just the knock against Houston is going to be that this will be the first time they've done this. Like we just don't know what to expect come playoff time. They don't have, the little more seasoning on them that, the Lakers do the past few years. And Luka was just in the finals last year with Dallas. So he's got that. Memphis has been here now a few times. Denver, obviously winning a title a few years ago, has been here plenty of times at this point. OKC, you could have said that last year, but not this year. So I don't know. Like I said, Denver, I guess Denver's not middle of the pack right now. But I mean, I think you got to feel good about the Lakers trending up. I think the Warriors are trending up. I still think Memphis is trending up. I know they've been kind of a little up and down, but I think Memphis is probably flying under the radar the most, in my opinion, out of this team.
I think they are going to be my bandwagon pick for this year. I think it's going to be the Grizzlies.
That's fitting. We loved grit and grind back in the day. Like I feel like we sort of bandwagoned them at one point. Yep. You're right. And it is a lot different than it is in the East. Like the Bucks and the Sixers, it's well, they have Doc Rivers. And it's like you really want to do that to yourself again after being a Sixers fan. The Bucks and the Sixers are weird because it's like because they were rebuilding at the same time.
Yep.
There was like a little bit of animosity. The Bucks owners piped up at one point, which was a little weird because it's like we don't really like the Bucks are nowhere near the Sixers' historic rivals. Like they've all both been kind of mediocre, honestly, over most of our lives. I mean, Bucks had the title recently, so obviously huge difference there. But I don't know. I just think again the Bucks feel capped. Like every time I want to believe in the Bucks, they just go out and do something just that doesn't make sense. And I don't need to worry about that. We should talk Embiid being shut down a little more. We kind of glanced over that in this conversation, and I feel like we should talk about it just because we have to, unfortunately. It's tough, dude. Like I think Joel is watching his body fail him in full time and like in real time. It stinks too because of the Supermax extension that I mean, we'll get into the front office in a little bit, but it's like I feel like that's what Embiid's now legacy is going to be. Is it's like here's this guy making a ton of money and he doesn't play, not the fact that hey, this guy was playing at MVP level and his body is just failing him at this point. Like it's come. You always knew that there was that potential, but yeah, the combo. I mean, the knee injuries, the back injuries, like I don't know. I also just don't like the narrative that Embiid is just like lazy and doesn't want to play. Like my guys played playoff games through broken faces, literally.
Yeah.
Like what was that? He had like a partial Bell's palsy at one point and was playing through it. Like I don't want to hear that either. Like he's played through multiple injuries that have required surgery, and it's like I am gonna get a little defensive there. Like if you want to blame Joel for some things like being out of shape and a little bit of like those type of conditioning issues, I won't argue with you there a little bit. But like I'm putting 75% at least on the organization for not maximizing his ability to win at this point. When he was healthy.
You go back and you look at it, and it's like, his MVP to the 21, 22, 22, 23, where he was leading the league in points at 30.6 and 33.1. He actually was even higher last year at 34.7. Like, it's probably looking back at it, that was the window. That was the window. It's now closed. I mean, again, hasn't played a ton of games with us this year. I think he's at 19. He's under 20. But even in those games, point production's down. From 34 last year, he's at 23 this year. The shooting's down, the effective field goal is down, like rebounds down. Again, it's only 19 games, but you look at the stats, you go, that probably the last 3, maybe even 4 years, that was the window. And we missed it, and probably have to realistically look at that now. And like you said, it will be one of those things where it will be one of those things where we look back and fans will try to write the narrative around it because of the money that's now locked up with him. But yeah, I don't think he deserves that kind of hate. I think he was all in, and I'm worried that it's over, essentially.
No, I think it's over. And I think there's 2 timelines here or ways. The darkest timeline is that you're stuck with Embiid. You're stuck with Paul George, who don't even get me started on Paul George. Paul George says that he's going to stop the podcast and wants to take the season seriously. They won like 20 games under 500, Paul. What are you talking about? You want to take the season seriously now and make a finals push. You guys are down 50 to the Bulls the other night. Like, don't talk to me about stopping the podcast now because you want to take it seriously. Just like, and then they even keep doing it. I'd more respect if you keep doing the podcast.
Keep doing the podcast. Yeah,
I would. Like, can you read the room for once in your life, Paul George? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, unless you move one of them, that's the problem, is that's going to jam your books up for the next 4 years. And then at that point, that coincides with Maxey, who's going to be frustrated of winning, and then he's going to ask out, and then you're really just out of luck. I mean, because, like Maxey and Jared McCain are the only things holding this together right now. The best case scenario is obviously, like, you got to rely on the draft. And, like, look, they're going nowhere fast. They've lost 9 in a row. Like I said, they were down 50 to the Bulls the other night in 2025 post-Zach LaVine trades. Like, that is... there are 20 games, or there are 20 wins right now. Toronto's at 18. Toronto also has the easiest schedule the rest of the way. So if you can get
Mm-hmm.
below Toronto and get in that top five, you've got a 64% chance of keeping your pick at that point. That's the biggest thing is like, look, you got to get something out of this season, some young guy to give you a little bit of hope and maybe
Well,
figure out the rest.
let
They ain't
me
catching
ask
Charlotte,
you.
Washington, Utah, or
Well,
the Pelicans quick.
and let me ask you again. Jared McCain, great pick.
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey, great pick. I would say Paul Reed was a good pick. Isaiah Joe was a good pick. Mikal Bridges was a great pick, but we
Don't
traded
even
him.
start Isaiah Joe too, low key. Moving Isaiah Joe was insane. It's because Doc Rivers doesn't like young players, but we don't need to do that again. That was insane.
Well, so to all that to say, those are very spread out kind of picks when you look at all the picks we've had in the last few years down to 2018.
Multiple front offices too.
Right. So do you feel confident in our ability to find those diamonds in the rough like we have a little bit in the past? But again, like you said, it's a hard thing to judge because it's multiple front offices. Things have changed. There's obviously some misses in here. I don't know.
It's tough because I don't necessarily think they've drafted wrong. It's just like the other reality is it's like, look, we don't need to keep relitigating this, but they had two number one picks go completely bust on them. Like
Yeah.
you think about all the number one picks in the history of the NBA, and the Sixers have probably two of the top five worst that have ever happened. Like only the Sixers could draft guys that just don't play that well.
Especially compared to the people that went behind them or after them or around them or even
You're
in
right.
that draft in general.
You're right, though. They've weirdly been able, around 20, have been able to find talent every time. So you're right. Maxey was a guy who slid way further than he should. Jared McCain looks like a guy who slid way further than he should. You know,
Mikal Bridges at 10, which
again, that's just it's an unforced error. Like, and those are the unforced errors. It's the trades, it's the signings. Like, I don't know. With Joel, I still think some team might take a risk on him. Like you're not gonna get nearly back what you should have because of the contract, or you just, they should shut him down and try to get anything out of him next year to rehab. Like clearly this season is lost. Paul George, I don't know what you do. Like Paul George, you're just eating something if you get a team to bite for it. Like not this early, like maybe later, but I don't know what you do right now.
I will say 2014 was easily the Sixers' best draft year, where they took Joel Embiid where they took Joel Embiid, they took KJ McDaniels and Elfrid Payton, baby. Let's go. What a draft.
They traded Elfrid Payton right away. I would say, well, get credit for that. We traded him.
I'm taking credit for, listen, if we're taking credit for Mikal Bridges, I'm taking credit for Elfrid Payton.
I'm not taking credit for Mikal Bridges. That's one of their biggest blunders of all time.
Trading him mid-interview about how he's excited that his mom works for the team.
Oh, my God. I remember where I was at, shout out to Gene. I was with him at Culver's up in Oviedo, and literally, like, I just remember sitting there and watching that and being there's a tweet from me that night that says Mikal Bridges the perfect pick, and then we literally traded him within 2 minutes, dude. Oh my God, I'm so sick of this organization, man. I've said it a zillion times, but like, yeah, dude, it's bleak. Embiid's legacy is complicated, but the dialogue is already going to be very annoying, and it should be way more focused on the Sixers to me than it should be
mismanagement of the whole situation. We knew you, or we. It was very public and pretty much agreed upon that the window was going to be short, and you had to capitalize on it, and we missed it. I mean, box plus, offensive box plus minus, like it's significantly down this year, and it's so just all the stats point to it's over. I hope it's not.
I hope it's not either. Like I was at that game, like I said, I was at the Boston game a few weeks ago, and they got crushed. And like Joel he wasn't right. Like he had no lift. Like there was not, like that's with my own eyes. Like you just can see when somebody's struggling, and it's extremely unfortunate to say the least. Yeah. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before the bad. So Justin, I will start with you this week. Who is balling?
Sure. Shout out to StatMuse for this stat. This stats, 26.8 points per game, 8 rebounds, 7.3 assists per games, going 56, 41, and 75%. That is LeBron James from his MVP season. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yep.
26.4 points per game, 8.2 rebounds per game, 8.3 assists per game, going 55, 44, and 76%. That is him since turning 40. The stats have gone up.
Yeah, it's really crazy, dude. And I mean, you try not to, again, after I'm saying I'm on Team LeBron, I don't really need to come out here and be all like that.
Yeah.
But it's we're never going to see anything else like it. Like the guy has just been
Yeah.
this good for this long consistently. I always do think of that tweet where he's like, "Man, thank God LeBron is 30, and this effery won't go on any longer." And it's like, bro's still out here 40 doing
He's
it.
still here. He's still
Crazy.
here. And depending on like, if he's able to if Luka's able to take the reins and he's able to take a step to the second, like who knows how long he'll freaking be around. Like
he gets ring 5 too. I think we start closing the GOAT conversation, but
we'll
that
see.
might just be me a little bit. All right, balling for me this week is Brandon Ingram. We finally should talk about him getting $120 million contract extension with the Raptors.
Yep.
Again, I don't know that this is a great move for the Raptors necessarily. Like, and the biggest thing is the injury risk, right? Like Brandon Ingram just hasn't played a lot of games, and you're paying him $40 million a year now. I don't know that this core with him and RJ and IQ is really good enough to win anything. Like, and that's kind of my beef. But it's like with Brandon Ingram, he's played 18 games this season and he's 27. Like, in theory, this is the type of guy and the type of timeline you should be investing in. So I get that. I mean, he played 79 games his rookie year, and the most he's played then is 64 in 23 and 24. He's had multiple seasons in the 60s, but like 18 games this year, 45 games in 22, 23. 2018 and 19, he only had 52 games. Like, I don't know. I hope he stays healthy. Obviously, that's the biggest thing. But again, it's more of just like, I don't really have any faith in what the Raptors are doing here right now. But Ingram has been holding out for this big contract for a while, and he got it. So,
yeah, and I'm interested, again, it's tough for us to rehash this conversation considering we had an entire podcast conversation about it. But I am excited to see what they're able to do around Scotty, and maybe you move RJ or something. You definitely have a good core, plus whatever you do with your picks, obviously towards the bottom half of the standing, so you'll have a decent pick. I just question whether or not Ingram fits that timeline. Whatever that ends up being is my concern. But happy for him to get the cash and lock it in because, like you said, he's been trying to get it for a sec. So
yeah, 100%. All right, who's falling for you this week?
Fallen for me is going to go to Jayson Tatum. As they played the Cavs the other night, they took a 25-3 lead in the first, and he told the Cavs to go the you-know-what home. The Cavs would then go on to win the game 123-116, which is why you don't talk until the game's over.
It's just crazy because I feel like every time Tatum has something cool like that, because that should have in theory been cool, that something happens. And the basketball gods say, you know what? Not so fast.
You ain't no Steph Curry with the good night. You ain't that. Just no, don't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Boston's gonna be fine. It's not really a big deal. You obviously don't love blowing a 22-point lead, but it was early. I think it's bigger for Cleveland. Cleveland needed that win.
That's my point. I think it is a little bit of a big deal because you now let the Cavs realize, we can beat you because they hadn't done it. Yeah, because they hadn't done it yet. And so that's why I think it's a big deal is the Cavs will go back to this game when or if they match up and say, look, this is the formula. This is how we did it. The other games they shut us down at 3, but we were able to overcome that in this game. And we came back from 25-3. It's never out of range. So I do feel like it was a significant issue loss for Boston and big for the Cavs to get that win.
Yeah, I think I again lean more that it was bigger for the Cavs to get that win. I think it was really important. They need to get over that mental block a little bit. And like you said, now with home court, you got to feel pretty good as long as they just handle their business the rest of the season. But a pretty big lead there. Falling for me is Jalen Suggs. Injury in his left knee. He's going to be out indefinitely. He's only made really one appearance since the new year. He was on January 25th against the Pistons, but the Magic have been just sadly trending down for quite a bit now. I mean, they're still in play-in position, but they're, under 500 right now, which is pretty jarring for how well they started. Largely it's been two things. It's been because Paulo and Franz, since coming back, have been fine. It's been the lack of, support, like the lack of just the other guys stepping up. And I think Suggs going down has been a big deal. Like Suggs has been their main number 3 guy. He's playing great all year, like
Yep.
especially defensively. I think he means a lot to this team. And so now losing him, which feels like indefinitely feels like it's going to be closer more towards the end of the season at this point. Like we may not see him again. I think that's tough for Orlando. And maybe you need to lean in. I was talking to our guy, Andy Jordan, a little bit off mic earlier. And, he was saying you kind of need to lean in now to Anthony Black and to Jet Howard and to see what you have in these guys or whether you need to move on, both some of the younger guys. That may not be the worst idea, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and again, when you have your 2 franchise cornerstones, I think you can lean on that a little bit for Orlando, but yeah, no way around it. Like this has been a really tough slog for them here these last like 3 or 4 months.
Well, and I always joke that Orlando starts strong, and then every season the wheels fall off. But it's worth mentioning with Suggs, his points, career high in points, career high in assists, career high in total rebounds. Percentages were down a little bit more, but usage is up, so like you kind of expect that a little bit. But yeah, man, it's a bummer to see, and it goes back to the trade deadline. They were a bummer to not really make any kind of noise. So
yeah,
either way.
I mean, you're a little, I mean, with the deadline and how this is played out, I'm like almost weirdly not as harsh on them now because it's like, are they playing well enough to really justify and go all in? But
go get another guy. Yeah, I agree. Go get someone in the draft. But it's like, did you win too much where you're going to be in a weird spot where you might not be able to hit in the draft? I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to. I mean, like you said, those mid-rounders going to have to hit on them. We're not going to play grid this week. Again, kind of technical things that we're still working through, so that will make its comeback. But thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, anywhere you can get your podcasts, you can find us.
And find us on YouTube. Just search Driving Dish NBA. You can find the podcast there. Subscribe. You'll get notified when a new episode is coming out.